was dying. That baby had no chance at all. Let me tell you how bad that baby was. And that baby was so bad that by the time they finally got into the hospital, because his fever was so high they couldn't keep anything down, and that night in the hospital he died, and only by prayer came back to life. And so the next morning 4 surgeons operated on this baby. 4 specialists. They discovered that the problem was his little appendix had ruptured 3 or 4 days before the surgery. And so when they went in to remove the appendix, when they burst, they dislocated. So they had to enlarge the incision. They discovered that his entire body cavity was full of gangrene. They discovered as they began to remove his intestines that the more they removed, it was all filled with gangrene, so they just sewed him back up. And they told the parents his body cavity, his intestines, his stomach is full of gangrene. They said that we are not able to bring his fever down, but it doesn't matter because he no longer has a working brain. His brain is past that of a total vegetable. That if this baby were to live, he'd never have body functions. He would never have any brain activity. He is completely level flat on his brain. And then the baby was in a fetal position. His eyes are rolled back. The only sign of life was the baby was agonal breathing, heavy breathing, like right before you die. They had hooked him up to intravenous cut downs in his ankles. And after a period of days, they couldn't figure out why the baby would not die. But then all the veins in his legs collapsed. They could no longer feed him. This baby had went for days now without water, without nourishment, had all this gangrene in his body. And the doctors were saying, listen, the Catholic Church, as a Catholic hospital, snuck in and performed last rites on this baby. That's how bad it was. Finally, the 4 doctors visited the mother and the father again. And the 4 doctors said, listen, this baby is not going to live. We think every breath's his last one. We don't know why he's still living. But we want to operate. If you'll let us operate, we're not going to save him. He cannot be saved. They told the mother and the father that will you let us operate on the baby because we might learn something that'll help us save somebody else's baby. And the mother and father said we need to talk about it and pray about it. They called a prayer meeting with the baby's grandparents, a great aunt and uncle, and their pastor. And they met in that room and they had a prayer meeting over this 19-month-old baby. And in that prayer meeting, because the doctors were pressuring them, let us go in now while he's still alive. And so they're having that prayer meeting and the mother lifted up that baby. This is unthinkable. This makes no sense whatsoever. She lifted up that baby and she said, God, I praise you for 19 months. If you take him, I will praise you for taking him. If you heal him, I dedicate him to you and I praise you and I give him to you. But I will not let his fate be decided by the doctors. I put him in your hands. And she told the doctors no. She sat by his bedside that night waiting for him to die because nothing happened. She dozed off in the chair sitting by his bed. And when she dozed off, she woke to a gasp. She thought she heard a loud gasp. And she looked in the bed expecting the baby to be gone. The baby was crawling all over the bed, skinny as a rail, hungry as a button. Every stitch on and in that baby's body was in a tight ball of pure white. She said they looked like could come out right out from the store. Nothing, just totally pure. Every stitch was gathered together. The grandparents, the pastor, the great aunt and uncle, the father, the mother, all witnessed it. The baby came home. The baby was fine. The baby never had a problem again. I tell that story because that was my mother, that was my father,